So we don't know for certain whether or not Bol Bol will continue to get opportunity, but it sounds as if Frank Vogel is really trying, now that the big three are back and we're headed towards the back half of the season, that he's really trying to iron out his bench rotation. Here's what he had to say about it.
Yeah, just keep learning each other. I mean, having Brad back is beyond welcome. But there is an integration piece of guys still learning each other and knowing when to pick spots, to be aggressive, to facilitate all those types of things. And we're still a little too unsettled with our role players, and who's earning those minutes. So I like to get that settled as quickly as possible. But with guys being in and out, we haven't been able to do that. So the biggest thing is just those guys learning each other and continue to grow in our system.
So it seems like that might be why we've seen a little bit more of some other guys lately, like Saban Lee, Udoka Azubuike, and even Bol Bol. He's probably trying to give another opportunity to all these guys to really showcase what they have, what they can bring to the table, and maybe even test out a little bit of how they have bonded and built chemistry with some of the starters on the team as well, because I think that's a big portion of this that will kind of go into it. Like, do we see Chimezie Metu have really good chemistry with Bradley Beal in the ways that we've seen some guys have really good chemistry with Devin Booker or Kevin Durant? Like, what does that all look like to set this team up in the best way possible?
I mean, we saw that a little bit last year when Kevin Durant and Jock were on the court together. They seem to have an instant connection right off the bat. You don't know what players feel comfortable with what players until you throw them out there in the middle of a game. And there's one thing about being familiar and comfortable with a guy in practice versus getting out there on the actual court and, different players, different systems are attacking you, and how you manage that with another player. Like, some guys just listen, I in the course of my young playing career back in the day, there were certain guys where it just felt like there was like this mental, connection where we just knew where the other guy was going to be or how he was going to, react to certain situations. And you don't know that until you get into those games. And so I like what Frank is doing. It's different than what Monty did. We used to complain about Monty because his rotations were wildly all over the place. But that's because we got to game 70 and he was still doing the same stuff that he did in game number 1.
Yeah.
You can't do that. At some point, you got to find some consistency. So right now, in the first 40, 50 games of the season, you do that. The last 30, it's all about tightening it up and making sure that you're getting the chemistry where it needs to be. Guys are feeling comfortable. And more importantly, guys know what their role is going to be and the fluidity of the game and the rotations, because that's what gets them comfortable. If you fuck with that, that's when you run into issues with all the other players outside of your big three, and you do not want that this year.
Well, and Frank's had to deal with so many injuries, too, that it's forced his hand into odd rotations. Not just injuries to the top guys, but you've seen Little out and Okogie out and a bunch of guys struggle here. So, but, yeah, I think we're starting to get closer to that time. I think right after All-Star, Frank's got to kind of have that pretty good idea of who his top 10 are and lock it in and build that chemistry between this group, because we saw if you don't build that, it doesn't just magically come playoff time. And that's what happened last year. You kind of ran out of runway to build that chemistry with the group after the trade for KD, and you couldn't get it done. So he needs to shorten those. And I think we're starting to get a good idea. I think there's a couple spots that it may keep jockeying for position, but I think we're pretty close to guys that are going to be in his rotation.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Who are you guys thinking are for sure shoe-ins? Who do you think is still kind of a fringe? And is there a situational type of a thing where maybe if we need more size, we'll turn to this person, or if we feel like the team is smaller, we can stick with this? What are your thoughts on the rotation thus far? I know we've only seen a few games with the big three in action and healthy, but how are you feeling?
This is assuming the big three are healthy.
Yes, assuming the big three are healthy.
And I'm going to assume Grayson Allen is your fifth.
That's who I would put
That's who
in
I
the
would
fifth
put, too.
spot
I mean,
as
he has
well.
been.
Yeah. So with those 5 locked in, I would say Gordon is the only one right now that has got a locked in position. You can make an argument for Shemezi because he's played quite a bit in the last 15 games, but I could see a scenario where things might shift a little bit when Naz comes back, and if he plays at the level that he's shown to be capable of from time to time. Outside of that, it's kind of a wild card. Everything's up in the air. Josh Okogie's been inconsistent. Goodwin's been inconsistent. Yuta, Eubanks, KBD, they've all been wildly inconsistent. You don't know what they're going to get from them. So outside of those 5, I would say Gordon is for sure a lock. Mezzi's right there on the verge of being a lock, and then it's everybody else.